cuffs are off, man. Get right. Too many left in these leagues, but I ain't gonna leave. I'ma get right. Get right. Down to the bottom and scratch it for all the...
Hey everybody, Adam Rank here.
What's up everybody? It's Marcus Grant.
This is AJ Dillon of the Green Bay Packers.
I gotta give a shout out to y'all at Get Right Fantasy.
If you are not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Do you want to lose your league?
Our league. Check out the Get Right Fantasy Network.
You got to get right with the Get Right Fantasy Network.
Best of luck with your podcast. Appreciate the support.
You're tuned in to watch my boys at Get Right Fantasy Network. Get you right. Enjoy the show.
But I tune in every Friday. Strategies provided, I will lock in every way. So go and roll your sleeves up. Yeah, go and roll your sleeves up. And I'm getting down cause I roll my sleeves up. And I'm getting right cause I roll my sleeves up.
Yo, what's up, football fans? Welcome to another episode of The Extra Point. Got my guy Cody with me. I love to see the head nod, right?
Yeah,
Like the dude. I mean, like you could just sit here for like, like 30 more seconds. I mean, it's too long, but like that'd be dope, right? And just get yourself pumped up. So, what's up, my boy? How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Can't complain. You and I were just talking pre-show. The neighbor kids are having a little beer pong tournament with water right now. They are for sure under 21, but I'm almost positive in high school. I just went upstairs to get some water and saw them out in my kitchen. So, if you want to hop on over to catch a quick flight to California, we can show them. We can run the table for a little while. Elbow behind the line, though. Make sure. I heard some complaining about the elbow rule already. So it's all
already good. At a young age, huh?
Hey, at least they're playing by the rules, man. They know what's up. So, but yeah, welcome into the show. Super excited to have Cody here tonight. Let's do some announcements. Let's pay some bills real quick, and then we will jump into it. Y'all know what it is. Hit that like and subscribe button. You know how to follow along on The Extra Point. You can obviously catch me on X at P Ruskin. I've actually taken a little bit of my legit or bullshit segment, and I've started tweeting some of that out with some polls. So really cool that people have been interacting with that. Jump over to at P Ruskin on X. Follow me there. You can interact. Drop me questions. Drop me any lines you want to see on the show. Obviously follow along on Instagram at _extra_point_FFB. And of course, if a podcast is more your style, go over to Spotify and Patreon to find the show there as well. And while we're here at the top, Cody, where can everybody find you?
They can find me at dynastypros.com as a writer or on their YouTube with my podcast, Fourth and Dynasty, which Phil was just on.
I was. We're just flipping it here. So I'm going to throw my link in the chat. For those that aren't subscribed, here is the link. Cody, if you want to do the same throughout the show, we will obviously be taking live Q&A. I'm going to pay a bill here real quick, and then, we are going to get into some content. Y'all know we've got shows for you basically every day of the week right now. So on Monday, you can catch our waiver wire show at 9 p.m. Tuesday, our boy Tycoon holding it down for the fantasy boardroom. He had a badass show last night. Was excited to hear him. He was also a guest last week on the show. Wednesday, we have our show that we're doing right now at 6. Followed, stay tuned right afterwards. Rasta and Frank will come back and do the buy low, sell high from some redraft perspective at 9 p.m. And then, of course, tomorrow night, you can catch me doing my DFS and betting, obviously doing some underdog, and then, of course, our weekly picks, both straight up and with confidence points. You can catch that at 4 p.m. And then don't miss either show we've got going on Friday with our Start Sits Part 1 at 6 p.m. Pacific with Mike and Kendall. And then, of course, you can catch me and Rasta holding it down for the West Coast folks at 8 p.m. for Start Sits, every game broken down for you, who we like, making sure that you are getting yourself ready for the weekend. And, of course, jump in on Sunday at 8 a.m. Pacific with Mike for that last-minute bit of news with our active, inactive, last-minute start sits, making sure that you are 100% prepared with any Q&A, getting you ready for kickoff. So super excited for what we've got going on here on the channel. And then, of course, this is all brought to you by our boys over at Underdog. Underdog Fantasy is the best and easiest place to play fantasy sports. From their best ball draft tournaments, where you can obviously draft your team with no season-long time commitments, no waivers, no trades, and no weekly lineup setting. You can also enter their pick'em contests, where you can pick higher or lower on player stats like total yards and touchdowns. That is where I will actually be pulling my higher or lowers from for my DFS and betting shows on Thursdays. And then, of course, you can use the promo code GETRIGHT, GETRIGHT, like you see on the screen. Receive a 50% deposit match instead of the lowly $100 I used to get and Cody, you used to get. Now they are giving you up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Visit underdogfantasy.com or download the fastest growing fantasy app from an app store today. Well, we're not going to talk about him specifically because there's not a ton to talk about. But we are going to talk about some teams and some players that Davante Adams could be traded to, and what does that mean for your dynasty rosters and your impact. So, look, he's 31 years old. He's got the hamstring injury currently. I think you and I, Cody, would probably agree his best days are behind him. He's probably got 1, maybe 2 more impactful years in the league. But let's start at the top with the 2 most likely teams, and let's start with the number 1 team. I think everyone's pretty, it's not guaranteed, but the New York Jets. So what I want to talk about with you is if he goes to the Jets, how does that impact? Let's start with Garrett Wilson. How does it impact Garrett Wilson? What does that do for you in your mind?
I think out of everyone, it affects Wilson the most. And that's just because of kind of the comments that Wilson has said in the last few days. It's like, they're not using me right and all that kind of stuff. We all know Aaron Rodgers is a diva in that way, that he has his offense and this is how he's going to run it. And that's why Lazard is getting so much play right now. So if you're going to throw in another receiver that he's played with before, he's going to demand those targets. And that's not because of him being wide open or just the better athlete. It's just because he has the trust of Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, that's how it's going to be, and that's how it always will be. So I think it would affect Wilson a lot, even though he's not really producing much right now anyways.
And I think that's what scares me. And stay tuned for some of, obviously, we're going to go through some trade for and trade away targets. So spoiler alert, you might hear more about a couple guys we're going to talk about in that segment. But look, Wilson's targets have been 11, 6, 9, and 8 the first 4 weeks. So not bad, obviously, from a target share perspective in terms of what he's getting. Obviously, the production hasn't been there. I know in redraft, if you took him at the 1-2 turn, you are panicking. I don't have him in redraft, thankfully, but in the few dynasty leagues that I do, it's not pretty. I'm not excited to play him as anything more than a flex. I want to just talk about Breece for a second, because I do think it's interesting with Breece getting 6, 8, 5, and 5 in terms of targets. Braylon Allen has been effective. He's been used. You and I talked about him last week. We like Braylon Allen. We think he has a role in this offense. And while it doesn't necessarily take away from what Breece's capabilities are, I think the target market share that could go away from Wilson could also impact Breece, and that's where he has had some value. Do you see, I still would have Breece as a top 5 based on production and age, but do you see a potential maybe 1 or 2 targets less per game for Breece, or do you think it really just impacts Wilson?
No, I can see that for Breece, but at the end of the day, I still think Breece would make do with the targets he gets anyways. I'm more worried about what Wilson would produce. So even if Breece is out 1 or 2 targets, I still think that's okay.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, like I said earlier, Braylon Allen's been in that role. He's been a good, kind of a fill-in. I flexed him last week in the league. It didn't work out, but it was the right decision on what that roster had. And I was like, this is my best chance to probably get a touchdown or at least get some, decent yardage. So yeah, the Jets would be an interesting spot, which also leads me to believe that obviously he wants to play with a quarterback he knows, and the reason he went to the Raiders. So let's talk about the Saints here for a second with his buddy Derek Carr. Let's just talk about Olave and Shaheed. And the reason I've only brought those 2 guys up, I think regardless, Kamara's role is pretty safe.
Yep.
I think they're going to use him the way that they have used him. We know there's not a second running back there. I just can't see a world outside of injury where Davante Adams' addition to the team impacts anything they're doing with Kamara. But what does it do from an impact perspective with Olave? And I think that's obviously the higher value player. So how do you view that with Adams potentially going to New Orleans?
I actually like it in New Orleans, and here's why. I always think Olave as a 1B player, not a 1A player. Mm-hmm. So I always think he needs someone else there to help combat some of the, so he doesn't have to have the quarterback or cornerback 1 every time. So Adams would do that, and I think his target share might go down just a tad, maybe 1, 2, 3 targets, but he's going to be more open. He's a great route runner, so I think getting someone on the other side other than Shaheed, I think would benefit him greatly.
Let me ask you this then, because I agree with what you just said. I think my fear is in the touchdown department, because that's where historically Olave has been low, and that's really what's kept him out of that wide receiver 1 finish over the last couple of seasons. And I think, like you said, I feel much better with Olave as my wide receiver 2 than my wide receiver 1. I think most people would. Do you think that it's going to stabilize in terms of, like, is his ceiling capped in terms of total touchdowns if Adam does show up? Or do you think with Adams there, like you said, it maybe opens up more looks for Olave for touchdown possibilities? Which side do you lean there?
I would actually still lean for more touchdowns, because in the red zone, you're going to want to go with the bigger target, and that's Adams. You're going to want to cover him up, and you always have the touchdown monster in New Orleans, as that's Taysom Hill. He's always stealing touchdowns. So it's more of a who's going to run those crossing routes and get open. It's going to be Shaheed and Olave. So I actually like what they would be doing anyways. And we all know Shaheed's the deep threat. He's the Deshaun Jackson. He's not going to get the 11 targets like he did last week all the time.
Yep.
So just more of a he's going to be hit and miss all year, and that's just that's the type of player he is, and that's why you drafted him where you did. But I think Adams would just stabilize the wide receiver core in a way that they haven't seen. I mean, with Michael Thomas, if you had Michael Thomas of 5 years ago, I think he would have worked out with Olave really well. And I actually think he worked with Olave pretty well last year. He didn't get the production value that he wanted. So.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, Shaheed 5, 4, 5, and 11 targets. To me, I don't think Adams impacts Shaheed at all. Like you said, he's the deep threat. He's the guy that, if he catches of those 5 targets, he catches 3 of them and goes for 87 and 2. Doesn't matter if Davante Adams is there or not. So I would just want to we're going to talk about the next 3 teams really quick, because they're kind of quick rapid fire, because I think for us it's more speculation. The noise seems to be around the Jets and the Saints, at least the loudest amount of noise. Are you more afraid of him landing in New York to hurt Wilson's value, or are you more upset if he goes to New Orleans? I think it sounds like maybe you think he could help Olave a bit more. So I think I know where you lean, but Wilson or Olave is more impacted. New York. Yeah.
I think Wilson's more impacted for sure.
I agree. And I think the other thing people have to remember is Aaron Rodgers may not be there. I know Derek Carr has got another year on the contract. They've paid him like he's going to be there for 2 more years. We haven't seen any news, or look, he's playing great right now. So there's no reason to have Spencer Rattler do anything other than continue to sit on the bench and practice. We're going to talk about Garrett Wilson later. Spoiler alert, but we're going to talk about him. So let's rapid fire these next 3 teams. These are no particular order, but look, I think the Rams have to be a logical landing spot because they have nobody. Cooper Kupp's injured, and now we're hearing that Puka may miss another 4 to 6 weeks, is what I heard today. Maybe now as early as week 9 is the earliest he might be back. Similarly, like we just talked about with Rodgers, Stafford's maybe next. If it's not this year, it's next year. You know what I mean? Like that's it. So I don't know. Acquiring Adams is really a win for the Rams, other than the fact that they don't have anyone. But do you think it's a possibility he winds up there?
Yeah, because they do need. You can't have Jordan Whittington be your wide receiver 1. You just can't.
No.
So, I mean, they have to do something. You would assume, or they just ride it out and just let it roll because now they have draft picks.
Yeah.
So then they know that they can get something.
Yeah.
In the draft next year, but I don't think it's a lost season. Their team is still pretty good.
Yep.
Like, or not good, but decent especially in the division they're in. So if they got Adams, I think it would just stabilize their season.
Yeah. And I think it's a spot that it could, just because of the injuries. I don't think it impacts Puka or Kupp's value long term. Kupp's also 31, so like, what's his age? He's already hit the age cliff, and at the end of the day, Puka's the guy going forward, regardless of whether this season is cut short or not. So let's talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. Look, losing Rashee Rice last week, and I don't want to hear any about, we don't know the extent of the injury. He ain't coming back. I don't care what the extent of the injury is. He's not coming back. And the question I have is, would he really go there? And this is interesting, right? Like, does Rice actually get suspended next year? I can't believe that the Chiefs would make an actual move on the possibility of a player maybe or maybe not getting suspended. But does it impact, if he does go there, how does it impact Travis Kelce? Because I think Worthy is safe. Obviously, he's a rookie. He's the big play guy. But how does it impact Kelce if Adams does go to the Chiefs?
I think it doesn't hurt Kelce that much. The person that hurts Kelce the most is Rice, because
Yeah.
he is that middle of the field type of player. Adams is kind of everything, so you can scheme him out of the middle or let him go deeper, just the deeper and shorter routes, and then
Yep.
let Kelsey be in the middle of the field, like where he thrives at. So I actually don't think it would be a bad place to have him on this team for Kelsey fantasy owners. But
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
no one wants to see him go to the Chiefs, and I don't think the Raiders would trade him there.
Oh, that's the thing, right? I don't know. Are the Raiders really going to trade in division? I mean, whether they think they can win the division or not. I mean, stranger things have, like the Bills have made a trade up with the Chiefs, who they have to go through to get to the Super Bowl, and right now it's not looking so smart. But
You can never forgive them. Yep.
no, yeah, yeah. Again, just kind of thinking about like teams that need a guy that again in division makes it really tough. So let's talk about this last team really quickly because this player is really interesting to me. The Steelers were linked with Brandon Ayuk all summer. It was the will he, won't he kind of questions, and then obviously ultimately coming back to the Niners here. But I don't believe that they are out of the market. In fact, I would say they are probably the third team in my betting poll behind the Jets and the Saints to actually acquire Adams. What does that mean for George Pickens? Because similar to some other guys we've talked about, like he's a deep threat, which is obviously his role. But I do think what makes Pickens valuable is the fact that he's the only guy there. So if there is now an actual player, what does that do for Pickens this season? And let's just say for next as well, because it's a dynasty show and we think Adams probably has 2 years left.
I think it would help Pickens out a lot because he needs to learn how to be a pro. I mean, he's got the diva down. He's always had the diva down. And he's got the talent to be, but he needs someone there to teach him how to be a pro wide receiver.
Yeah.
And I think Adams could do that. I think Adams is one of the better ones that could do that for him. I think one of the ones that he'd actually listen to. So I actually like that a lot.
I like it too for exactly the same reason that you just said. He needs to learn, he needs to grow into that. If the Steelers, I know the Steelers are unbeaten. I get it, right? Like it's Justin Fields revival. Justin Fields should have stayed in Chicago. Like all that is, to be fair, a little bit. It's a noise. It's kind of noisy bullshit, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
I think he will come crashing back down to earth here pretty soon. Pickens to me isn't a volume monster because there's not a lot of volume in this offense.
Yep.
So I think the targets 7, 4, 7, and 11. So he's had 29 targets on the season. He's turned that into 20 for 284 and 0. I don't know that it really changes it that much. If anything, I think it's the same thing we talked about, a couple minutes ago with Olave. It puts a guy who demands tension. Like when they play the Broncos, I know it's not in division, but like when they play the Broncos and you've got a lockdown corner like Surtain, who does Surtain cover? Does he take Pickens? Does he take Adams? So
exactly. Yep.
I think that actually helps Pickens in that way. Again, not a huge passing volume. We don't know if Fields is going to remain the guy or if Wilson will actually get worked back in, but because they were linked so heavily with Ayuk, it is an interesting position. So
can I throw in one more team?
Yeah,
here?
of course. Yeah, I was just going to ask you.
It's just kind of interesting, and I think the value, I think a sneaky team might be the Arizona Cardinals because, I mean, I've been trying to will T. Higgins there to be with Marvin Harrison Jr., but Davante Adams is there. I would actually love that for Marvin Harrison Jr. as well. Obviously, I don't believe in Michael Wilson like other people do. I just never have. And Greg Dortch, I think, is a really good slot player.
Right.
So they need another guy on the other end. I think that would take that offense just to the next level that they're looking for.
Yeah.
I think that would make their offense combat San Francisco's defense that you could probably split one with them and actually be a real wild card contender.
Well, as a Niners fan, I do not want to see Arizona add anyone that can hurt us, but I agree with you. I think that probably takes Michael Wilson not out of the dynasty picture, but it certainly depresses him to a level you just kind of have to hold and hope that Adams, doesn't show up or something happens where he becomes relevant again. I don't think it would impact McBride at all, and I certainly don't think it's going to impact MHJ. Connor's role is still pretty secure, so maybe he just gets a little bit less, in the passing game, although his value right now has been on the ground. He's been outstanding, so far.
I mean, less is more for Connor too. It just always has been.
Yep, always has been. Yep. Before we get into the next kind of topic here of is the tight end position broken, before we get into our trade for and trade aways, let's pause. Let's jump in the chat. I know people appreciate y'all showing us love. Got some questions, so we'll get into this before we get into the next topic here. Our boy George, always a good friend of the show. Appreciate having you here. Hey, guys, should I trade Mason for Achane or Bijan? Standard league, so non-PPR redraft. My other running backs are Saquon Barkley and Jahmyr Gibbs. Which side do you lean here?
if you can trade Mason for one of those two players, I'm doing that in every format, in my opinion. Just because we don't, even if CMC is out for the year, that's one thing, but maybe Mason's the play. But if you're thinking long term, Achane and Bijan are the better long term plays there. So I would definitely do that.
Yeah, I would do it for
But
Bijan.
redraft, I guess.
It's redraft. Yeah. That's what I was going to say. It's redraft. I don't think McCaffrey's coming back. It was 6 to 8 weeks from the time of injection for that shot he got in his Achilles. Yeah. That was that was, if it wasn't last Wednesday, it was the Wednesday before. My memory's a little. Yeah. It was within the last 10 to 14 days. Point being is now there's more news that he might have Achilles tendonitis in both legs, and it's just trending down. Yeah, so
you're right.
In redraft, I would do it for Bijan just because I think the volume is there. I don't think I would do it for Achane. I think the Dolphins are broken right now, man. I know Achane can win you a week off of half of the touches that the other guys need in the rest of the league, but Mason's the guy, and Guerendo fumbled off of the kick return last week, which was Kyle Shanahan doghoused him. There's really no one else there. So,
and to be honest, I mean, you're in a good spot already with Barkley and Gibbs.
Yeah.
So this is for a flex play. And really, Mason's a great flex play. So I would just keep him right where you're at.
Yeah,
so
I would.
Actually, no. In Dynasty, I would do it every day of the week. But in redraft, I probably would keep Mason for sure.
Yeah, I think I would still trade him for Bijan, but I wouldn't for Achane. And again, it's a standard league, so I'm chasing touchdowns. So give me Mason, give me Bijan, Mason, Achane in that order in this question. Perry W saying, I think the Bills should trade for Adams. We've heard that. I think that was a lot of noise early on. The only reason I think he won't go there is they pretty clearly have demonstrated by getting rid of Diggs, regardless of his diva status, that they're going younger. So I just don't see them bringing him in. And I just said it, the Dolphins are broken. So if you can beat the Jets, I think you win the division without him. Now you can't. You still got to get past the Chiefs to get to the Super Bowl, or whoever else is going to emerge. Possibly the Ravens, who are looking better, but I think from a youth perspective, that seems to be where the Bills are headed right now. Will Hayes, who should I start? Chase Brown or Javonte Williams? This is an easy one for me, but Cody, what do you have here?
I think it's an easy one for me too. It's Chase Brown.
Yep, Chase Brown. Let's move on. Yeah, I don't want to talk about Javonte. Let's move on. All right, so I think that's okay. Cool. Here we go. Would Wilson's value drop a lot if Adam goes there? So welcome to the show, and I apologize. I'm probably going to butcher this name. Paraiko, I apologize if I butchered your name there, but do appreciate the question. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button for us. We talked about that a little earlier on, so if you jumped in late, yes, we do think that Wilson's value would drop a lot. We think it would probably be the most impacted of the 5 teams we listed between the Jets, the Saints, the Chiefs, the Rams, and the Steelers. So I don't see a world where it's really going to be positive for him, for Garrett Wilson, that is, if Adams goes there, simply because there's only so many targets to go around. Awesome. So yeah, I think we are good here for just a second. Yeah, Rasta, appreciate you. If you do have a question, drop it in the chat. I will get to it ASAP. We do have super chat, so we're obviously going to jump into the next topic and get the show moving. But if you want us to pause and answer your question anytime, throw us that super chat, and we're happy to answer. All right, my man. Is the tight end position broken? Just yes or no? It might be. I agree.
I think so.
Look, I'm going to start at the top because we have to. What the fuck, Mark Andrews? What in the actual fuck? I mean, look, he's 33rd in targets earned this season. He's 29 years old. He got you this full PPR. He got you 3.4 fantasy points in week 1, 9.1 in week 2. And then apparently he took like a 2-week vacation and just said, like, I'm not going to go to Hawaii, but I'm also not going to play football. So he is 6 for 9. Excuse me. He has 9 targets. He is 6 for 65 and 0. What is your panic level in Dynasty? I'm not going to talk about redraft because you're benching him in redraft. What is your panic level in Dynasty on Mark Andrews, or are you panicking?
I am panicking a little bit, but it's not as much as I would be in redraft. It just, I don't know. I have a feeling that I can go get a Tucker Kraft or a K. Dotton or something like that, where I can supplant until Mark Andrews gets here.
Yep.
Which nothing shows me that he will be this dramatic 33rd in targets the whole year.
Yep.
Because I mean, right now it just the offense dictates or goes through Davante Adams, and then they're doing slip screens to Zay Flowers.
Flowers.
They really need that six guy on the line to help them block as well, and Andrews is doing that. This is how it is. So once the boxes get stacked, play action starts working a little bit more. That's when Mark Andrews is going to start becoming a factor again. Teams know and are still game planning for Mark Andrews.
Agreed.
And once that stops, which it will sooner than later, because then they're not going to see him as a threat, that's when he's going to start getting fantasy relevant. So is that a full year? It might be. But you can't really sell him either, because you can find a different person on the waiver wire that will probably get you points.
Yeah, I think in Dynasty you have no choice but to hold and bench. I think that's what you have to do. It's what I'm doing for the shares that I have. And you're right, Tucker Kraft is a good option. I played Hunter Henry last week. It wasn't pretty, but I got 2.9 or 29 yards or whatever he got me for 2 catches. So I got 4 fantasy points, and guess what? It's 4 fantasy points more than Mark Andrews got. You can't sell him. You know what he's capable of. So my question to you really quickly, I know it's about Dynasty, but can you actually drop him in redraft? He'll get picked. He will get picked up off the waiver wire.
Or are you okay with that?
And that's my question. If you drop him, are you okay with that? Like, what would you do?
If I was, let's just say, we're 4 weeks in. If I'm 2-2 and above, I'll drop him for a different asset.
Okay.
So if I'm still on a losing team, no, I'm going to keep him. But if I feel like my team is almost good enough to make it, and I just need a little extra push, like a Greg Dortch, I'd probably have Greg Dortch rather than Mark Andrews right now.
I'm there's some guys. I mean, I saw Tucker Kraft. It was a Dynasty league, but Tucker Kraft was somehow on the waiver wire in a Dynasty league. He went for $100. Basically, someone dropped their whole fab budget on him, which I don't really mind. You're buying a player if you feel like he's going to be your guy going for. I didn't look at that roster to see what else that guy has, but if you need a guy, you need a guy. And Kraft's, it's a better offense right now. So okay. Let's talk about the rest of the tight end position, because the question was, is the tight end position broken? Like, here's some scary stat lines I think that people are letting affect their judgment. And I tell you right now, I got an offer the other day, straight up, Dallas Goedert for Chris Godwin. I am the Chris Godwin owner. Which side would you rather have? Yeah, let's do both. Let's do redraft and Dynasty, because they're both kind of similar age when it comes to Dynasty perspectives as well. They're both older.
I guess the only way I would ever make the trade for Goddard is if it was tight end premium.
Right. It's not.
Yeah.
I declined it quite quickly, actually. Yeah. I wasn't offended by it. I just was like, and here's why. Dallas Goedert is tight end 1 right now. We're going to talk about him. Spoiler alert. 319 yards. A.J. Brown has played 1 week. Davante Smith. Excuse me. Wrong Davante. A good Davante. Yeah. Different name too. But Davante Smith, limited, has been in and out of the lineup. Concussion last week. So they're on the bye this week. Dallas Goedert has never in his career had a tight end 1. He's had 2 top 12 finishes. He has never had a top 10 if you're in a 10-team league. He's never had a top 10 finish. So to be tight end 1, I think, is very misleading. Bowers has 216 total yards. That's good. It's what we wanted to see. He seems to be the guy. And I think when Davante Adams goes away, we should only see more goodness for Bowers. Yep. I think if you wanted to trade for him, you've missed your window. Agreed?
For sure.
Yeah. Okay. Isaiah Likely, tight end 3 right now in total yards on the season with 167, but we just said it, 111 of those came in week 1. And Mark Andrews doesn't play football, apparently. He's now a blocking tight end. So look, here's some other scary stats. 20 different tight ends have scored a touchdown this season. Only 21 total touchdowns have been scored. So George Kittle's the only tight end with 2 touchdowns. But here's the guys you draft. Of the 20 tight ends that have scored, roughly half of those guys, league dependent, are on the waiver wire. They're not even rostered, which means you're not getting any points for that. And the guys you drafted, Kelsey, Andrews, Pitts, Laporta, and McBride, have not scored. Only Kittle and Kincaid, of the top 7 consensus tight ends this season in redraft, have found the end zone. So should we just replace the tight end position with a wide receiver or a running back flex spot? Should we just make it tight end premium, or are you a purist and you say, nope, the tight end's an important position in football and I'm going to live with the volatility? Like, how do we fix this? If we're for the commissioners, that are listening in, how do we fix this?
Right now, I have no idea because I don't even think it's fixed with tight end premium.
I agree
with how it is. So yeah, right now it's just, do we replace it or we just hold out because does it get any better? When would it get better if the running back position is actually, we've talked about this on my show and on other shows. It's like, if you have your bell cow running backs right now, you're sitting really good in your lineups at the moment. And then, and then you have all of your flex spots with wide receivers. So is it even worth even rostering a tight end at this moment?
I mean, I think it's doing, I won't say it's doing more harm than good, because I think unless you have George Kittle right now, nobody's scoring. No one's happy. Goddard, right? Unless Goddard, which, let's be fair, you didn't play him unless you punted tight end, right? So
exactly. Yep. You know how many weeks in a row I've added Brenton Strange and dropped Evan Ingram just because I have to. So it just happened. And so and this is the bad comparison, and this is why we know it's in a bad spot. Is that one fantasy player that you still have a defense or the DST, and they drop one every week and they pick up another one. You can do that with tight end right now.
Yeah, you can stream the position for sure.
And that's not good.
I mean, look, Tucker Kraft's on the waiver wire.
Yeah.
I mean, I just saw Tucker Kraft. I actually have a couple leagues where I didn't pick him up because I don't want to roster 2 tight ends, but I looked at it and I was like, the leagues that I don't have Andrews, obviously I've gone a different direction, but I haven't gone that direction. Leagues I have Andrews, I was like, do I go get Tucker Kraft? And I did in one. I kept Andrews on the hope that I see one more week, but
yep.
Because it's just hard to press that button, man. But I'm okay if people want to let it go. So anything else you want to talk about on the tight end position? Because I don't think there's much else unless you really want to dive in on something we haven't talked about. I think we want to get into some trade for, trade away.
Yeah, we can do trade for, trade away.
Let's do it. I want to talk about a running back right now who I believe is a trade away candidate. And in weeks 1 through 3, he went 27 for 68 and 0. He added 6 catches off of 10 targets for 46 and 0. Last week, he gets 16 rushing attempts, turns that into 93 yards and a tutty. He went 7 for 7 in the receiving game for 72 yards and no touchdown. Mr. DeAndre Swift. I'm selling, and I'm trying to sell off the back of the idea that he has never had a running back 1 season in his entire career. He's only finished inside the top 15 once. I know he's had his injury history, which is another reason I'm selling. But I believe, and I've said this many times, we have to stop after this many years and this much data and analytics and proof in front of our faces. Have to stop believing guys are going to transform into these players that we drafted them to be when they have never produced at that level. Are you trading for Swift? Are you trading him away? And if you're trading for or away, what are you wanting to get, or what are you selling for in return? Where are you with DeAndre Swift?
I don't have any shares of either, so this is pure.
Neither do I.
What I think of, I would be trading away for sure. Yeah. And I would be using that stat line week 4 heavy, because I think everyone can see that Roshan is going to get some more play.
Yep.
First of all, but you can also argue that week 4 they might have just went more to let's simplify the offense for Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
And what's that going to be? Who's going to be the security blanket right now? It's going to be DeAndre Swift.
Yep.
For one, because Allen is out. So then you have to play your rookie wide receiver too to make him look a little bit decent. But when Allen is back, it might go back to what we were in week 1 and week 3. And I don't want any part of that. So especially with what I was like right now, if you streamline running back in your drafts and stuff, there's far better options.
Agreed.
I mean, even if ETN stays hurt, Bigsby, I'd rather have Bigsby than Swift.
Yeah.
Just waiting in the looms of things. So yes, I would be trying to trade away. And for what? For anything?
Yeah. Well, let's give the people something. I think for me, I would be asking for a second I think a second is a reasonable price. You're not getting a first. That's ridiculous. We talked about, I think you and I a couple weeks ago about Alvin on your show, Fourth and Dynasty. You're talking about Alvin Kamara, and I said I think you have to get a first right now. It was after the 56-point week or the blow up, and I said if you don't get a first right now, you're not getting it. You're going to get a second and maybe another piece, maybe a third or a younger veteran on week 3 after the first. On week 3, right? But I do think you could find someone to give you a second in your league. I think that gets a trade done. Would you take a third and a younger piece? And if the answer is yes, what younger piece would you be looking for? Give me 1 or 2 names that pop into your head, because I have one, and one of them you already said.
I would take a third and even like a Marvin Mims, even just to see, because I'd rather have a dart throw in a younger wide receiver. Like that, or like, I think that's where it was, or even an older piece like Tyler Lockett. We all know he's on his way out, but if they're willing to throw him in there, I'm gonna take that in a heartbeat.
I would take Tank Bigsby in a third for exactly the reason that you said. Right, it wasn't good last season. It was kind of, yes, he's great, and then all of a sudden he's back to nothing with Etienne, and now we don't know what that's looking like. So that was a piece that I came up with.
A good rule of thumb for running backs too is, however you rank your like top 5 or 6, after that, you don't expect to get a first.
No,
like always just start the bidding at with a second to see what they're valuing that running back as well. So.
Agreed. Anything else on DeAndre Swift? We got 2 more trade away guys we want to get to here.
Let's keep going.
Let's do it. This next player, 29 years old. He has finished inside the top 12 only 2 times in his career. But you and I both know if you don't finish inside the top 5 at the tight end every year, 6 through 10, 6 through 12, depending on your league size, 6 through 14, it's a crapshoot. Insert name here for what that guy is going to be on a year-to-year basis. I just don't believe if you're finishing inside the 11, 12 spot that's affirming that you're a good tight end. Here's the spoiler alert. He's currently the tight end 1. He has on a bye this week. He has not scored a touchdown, and he's still the tight end 1, which will also tell you how bad the effing tight end position is right now. But we're talking about Dallas Goedert. I believe A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith both come back next week. I think you have to sell Goddard this week. I forgot to say this. With Swift, he has Carolina and Jacksonville his next 2 weeks at home. I think you might have a 3-week, probably more like a 2-week window to sell Swift.
Yep.
I think you got to sell Goddard this week. Do you agree with that? And if you do, what are you selling him for?
I'm selling him for. I'm going to start the bidding with a second for sure, right? I'm going to try to.
Yep.
But even if they throw in maybe even a third and an Elijah Higgins, another tight end that might give me some play, I might even take that just to get something back for him.
Let me give you a name and tell me which side of the trade you would be on, because I'm considering sending this, and I don't know if it'll get done. I know the guy, so I don't know if he'll take it. Dallas Goedert for Team A, Eric All, and a second for Team B.
Taking that all day.
Yeah. Do you think it gets done? Do you think it gets done though, or would you rather the second and the All side? Because I have Goddard. I want to sell.
I want the second and All side for sure.
I do too.
And and like we've been saying, like All is getting 4 targets a game, maybe for only 20 yards, but he's going to sneak in a few touchdowns here and there, and he's getting a good target share or a good snap percentage.
Well, look, Mike Gesicki was 1 for 1 for negative, lost 9 yards last week.
Yeah,
like he lost you points in your lineup,
and he's not a blocker at all.
He's not a blocker. And
it's
it's the Jamar Chase show, right? I mean, T. Higgins is a touchdown, a toenail or 2 taps away from a 1 or 2 touchdowns. He could have had much bigger weeks these last 2 weeks, but I just don't see a world where Eric All doesn't, especially in Dynasty, doesn't take over as the tight end here, possibly as early as this season in a full-time role for Gesicki. So give me Eric All in a second. I'm going to send that trade. The guy that I'm trying to trade for is really high on Eric All, so that's why I say I don't know if he'll take it. But
what about Noah Fant?
Noah Fant's interesting, right? Like in a tight end premium, I would do that. because he's been more relevant. I have him in a tight end premium league, and he's actually been starting for me. And, he gets me 7 to 8 points. Well, last week he crushed it because Geno threw the ball 8,000 times. But even with missing, part of the first half in that game.
And with the rookie coming out and still showing out too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So, and Seattle's, I don't know what to Seattle's just like a weird case study. I'm going to do some more research on them over the next couple of weeks because, was last week an outlier because they were chasing the game? Is this really what they're going to do? KW3 looked fantastic, and it's like Seattle.
I like a lot of
Stop
pieces.
being good, NFC West. Stop it.
I like a lot of pieces on Seattle. It's weird.
Stop it. We're trying to win one Super Bowl before all of the Niners retire.
Right, yeah.
Let's talk about a wide receiver here, 27 years old. Look, he's had 2 better weeks in weeks 3 and 4, but he's had 29 targets on the season. Brian Thomas Jr. has had 26. They both have 17 receptions. It's Christian Kirk. I've been on record. You can go back and listen to it for all those that are listening / watching. I have been on record since the preseason, since draft season, saying that I think the Jaguars are going to be atrocious this year. They're trending down. Do not draft them in redraft. If you have them in Dynasty, get them off your effing roster. They're going to be awful. Doug Peterson's on the hot seat. 2025 is the final year of Christian Kirk's contract next season. They don't really have an out. It's like $12 million in dead cap. I highly doubt they're going to cut him. But what would you trade Kirk for? Because these last 2 weeks have been better. Is he a hold? Is he a trade for you? I'm assuming you're not trying to trade to acquire him.
I'm not trying to acquire him for sure.
So is he a hold or is he a sell?
For the right piece, I think he's a sell. And I'm not even saying like, here's where I'm at with this is, I would try to acquire Judy for Christian Kirk right now because with the off chance that Cooper gets traded.
Interesting.
So if Cooper gets traded, I would love Jerry Judy over Christian Kirk right now.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Any other names you can think of that would be good pieces?
Right off the top of the head, let's think here.
I know I put you on the spot there. I have one that I do think could be interesting. It could potentially work out. It's his own team, but I would take Bigsby in that group. But I do think there's an interesting Nick Chubb's coming back. They've activated his practice window. I think it's an interesting time to take a look at Jerome Ford plus a pick and kind of disguise because I don't think you can get a pick straight up for Christian Kirk.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I wouldn't do a second for him. I'd rather have the second, right? And the third is too low. I'd rather have Kirk. But I do think when you take a trade and you kind of disguise what you're really after, if I'm after the second, give me Jerome Ford on the back of the idea that Chubb's coming back. He's Nick Chubb. He's going to be the guy. We said all along, and we've seen it in Cleveland with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt's been very involved. Now, I know he's not there anymore. This is Jerome Ford. But my point being is that I do think Ford is going to remain relevant. I know he hasn't been stellar, but he has been good enough to play as an RB2 in some of these teams. If you're a lot of teams are. If you're decimated at running back right now, if you drafted Christian McCaffrey at the 101, like some people, I didn't, but sorry, I won't put any more pain on you.
The only time I did it was when I auto-drafted, so that was my bad.
Okay, yeah. But look, in a Dynasty format, I think Ford's going to have a role for the next 2 to 3 years, and we play Dynasty in a 2 to 3 year window. So if I could get Ford in a second for Kirk, I'd be pretty happy with that. I think that's the best way to try to get the pick that you're after without just straight up, hey, give me this pick, because I don't think people are going to do that. So that was the one that came to me.
I'm thinking of what could I trade for straight up and it feel fair? And do we think of Josh Downs maybe? Maybe he's too high. Maybe Alec Pierce.
Possibly, but at that time it's why trade receiver for receiver, right? I was thinking more
okay, yeah, that makes sense. But
if you knew that Raheem Mostert was going to be healthy,
I would do it.
Would you take Mostert for Kirk?
For sure, yeah, because I just don't know what that backfield's going to be. So yeah, if Mostert's healthy, you're going to want to save Achane for later when Tua comes back, because I think all signs are pointing that he is coming back.
I think so.
I would put a guardian cap on him for sure, but that's just me. But it's just, but it's just more of a I'd probably take Mostert, especially if I need running back help. And a
I know
pick.
Mostert was out last week, the chest injury still. It's, practice reports. I don't know what he's going to be for this week, but the Dolphins just look broken. They have no quarterback. So I do think that if Mostert comes back, they're going to lean on Achane and Mostert pretty. I mean, look, they're manufacturing touches for Tyreek, and he still can't get going.
Yep.
So I just thought, Mostert was an interesting name of a guy that's like, he's older. Kirk's a little older. Maybe you're a win now team in Dynasty and you really need a running back, and maybe you drafted Keon Coleman in the second round. Maybe you got BTJ in the second round, some of those younger receivers, or you've got Corum who hasn't sniffed the field. I mean, Ronnie Rivers is getting play right now. Like, come on. So,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. Let's go through 4, which is really still kind of 3, but let's go with the number one, I believe, the number one trade for target in Dynasty right now. It's Garrett Wilson. I mean, look, the panic alarm in redraft, you draft him at the 1-2 turn. He's had 34 targets. He's turned it into 20 for 191 and 1. I think this is as low as you can get him. I think people are bailing out. I just saw him hit the wire in my main Dynasty league, the league that I care the most about. I saw him hit the wire yesterday, the trade block, not the waiver wire. Sorry. My mind went to redraft for a second. I was like, the waiver wire, scoop him up. Yes, no, sorry. The trade block. And I hit my buddy up. I just texted him. I said, look, give me a price check, because he still thinks he's, the guy that's paying, everyone's going to pay a premium. What he told me was, in fact, I'll read you the text. He said, I want a younger RB2 or an older RB2 and a pick. So let's just start there as a barometer. Give me some names in the younger RB2 space. Let's just assume that trade would go through, or at least be the building blocks of a discussion.
What range of RB2 are we talking? Like fringe RB2 or like fringe RB1s?
Problem I'm thinking about is like the guys that are younger RB2s are the fringe RB1 guys, because otherwise you're looking at like Rashad White.
Yeah. Am I looking at Rashad White or am I looking at Kenneth Walker?
I'd rather have Kenneth Walker.
I mean, I would too. So that's why it's
like Pacheco, James KW3, like those are the younger guys and that are RB2s that we all thought / still could, well, not Pacheco, but the other two that still could finish on that fringe RB1. But I'd rather have those running backs.
Even Rashad White?
Not Rashad White. No, I'd rather have Pacheco, Cook, or KW3.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But
I was like, what if you gave him Rashad White and a pick for Wilson? I would do that.
What would you add? A second?
To get
this isn't, by the way, sorry to cut you off. This isn't us like trying to figure out what I should trade. This is just in general, like for people that are listening. If you're trying to acquire Garrett Wilson, here's some names.
Yeah, I think Rashad White, and I'm throwing in the second just so I can get the deal done. I might start it out with a third.
Yeah.
Just to see if it can get done. But like you said, I don't want to miss out on Garrett Wilson if he's actually going to try to trade him. So I'm all right with trading a second round pick and Rashad White for him.
What about for those people that might be bailing on Ramondre Stevenson?
Oh, yeah.
What do you have to add on top to get Wilson? Because I don't know if Stevenson in a second gets it done. Is it 2 seconds? Is it a second in a future first? You go with the 26 first and hope your team does well and makes the playoffs and it becomes a late first?
Yeah, I would, because I wouldn't be trading a 25 first for him, because there's 10 running backs that I can have that'll replace Stevenson.
Agreed.
So, yeah, maybe a 26 first. I would do that.
Yeah, I think I would too. Yeah. It's hard because, like, the names that are the obvious names, like, you just can't. Like,
Is
talk about them.
Is Najee Harris in that list, do you think?
Yeah, I think Najee's in there.
What if he gets another contract? Then he's sitting real good, you would think.
Problem with Najee is I don't know where he's playing next year.
Yeah, exactly.
In a dynasty perspective, you have to look at that, right? Like, they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. It's not like he's crushed it this year, even though Jaylen Warren's been hurt. Like, he still hasn't been his rookie season has been his best year. So I just don't know the temperature check on Najee as far as, like, put it this way. If I saw Najee come in as part of a trade, I'm going, something stinks. What am I getting duped here? Like, what am I missing? I'm not talking about going on Keep Trade Cut and throwing in a trade calculator. F that. I'm not talking about that nonsense. I'm talking about using your brain that watches football on a weekly basis and goes, what are you really after? Because obviously Najee is a roster dump.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting. I think some of the names, like, okay, so let's go with a name you don't want to trade. Would you trade James Cook? for Garrett Wilson straight up, or what is missing in that deal? Because that's the name that comes to mind. If Pacheco was healthy, I would be asking you about Pacheco, but because he's hurt, you're trading for what Pacheco could be next season in Dynasty, because it's say 6 to 8 weeks more.
It's hard for me to go straight up on James Cook and Garrett Wilson, and it's just because of how volatile the running back market is.
Yeah.
He's like, I would want a little bit more from the Wilson side. I know that's crazy, but it's just.
But is it right now?
I don't know what running back I'm going to have. So if I have a running back, I think even a top running back 2 asset is a little bit more valuable in trades right now.
That's what I mean. Like Garrett Wilson was one of those, like I was saying earlier, right, when we were talking about guys like DeAndre Swift, and I said, like, we've got to stop using what we projected them to be for what their value is when they've never hit that. Mm-hmm. And you and I've talked about this, and I've talked about this on other shows. Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Brandon Ayuk, Michael Pittman, T. Higgins, Tank Dell, like all of those guys, Terry McLaurin, were all kind of in that flat tier of wide receivers of like Chris Olave. These are the guys. Yeah, but you're drafting these guys at the 1-2 turn or at the middle of the second round in redraft. And to be fair, in your single quarterback dynasty startups, that's still where they're going.
Yep.
And they've never produced that.
Yeah. So
it's like, I get it. You have to draft. Look, we have to draft for projections, right? Marvin Harrison is the consensus 101.
Yep.
We were putting a gold jacket on the kid before he stepped on the field for the Cardinals. So
for sure, yeah.
I understand that's how we draft. I do it too. I play in a ton of dynasty leagues. This is a dynasty show. But at some point, after enough data has come in and you look at it and you go, this kid hasn't hit the heights that we've drafted him at. What is his true value? You have to stop looking at 3 years ago when he was the number 10 overall pick.
Yeah. And I mean,
so I'd rather have James Cook, and I don't think it's that silly to say that.
I think so too.
So if you're looking at Garrett Wilson, I still think he's a great trade for target. I think we've given you a couple of names. Ramondre Stevenson and a pick would be interesting if you could get that done. You know, if you've got somebody who believes that Joe Mixon with the contract and a high-scoring offense in Houston is the guy, maybe you get, Mixon and a pick. That could be in it. I know Mixon's hurt, but, we will come back. I think that's an interesting name. So there's definitely some names plus a pick, I think, that you could go and try and acquire for.
What if I just gave you the whole Tampa Bay backfield, Bucky Irving and Rachaad White?
It's interesting. I'd rather have Wilson, so that's possible that gets done. If you're trading out, Rachaad White instead of a pick, because you're basically trading a pick with Bucky because he's a rookie. Yeah, so it's you're basically trading kind of a second/third rounder wherever he went in your drafts there, depending on your league. So that's an interesting one. Yeah, Rachaad White and Bucky, Rachaad White plus a pick might get Garrett Wilson done. Look, we all know trades that shouldn't get done. Trades that you're like, nah, I'll send this and it'll never get done. All of a sudden you wake up and check your sleeper app and you're like, oh shit, I got it got done, right? So send some stuff for Wilson. I think this is as low as you can get him. And if you still believe he can help your team as a wide receiver 2, which is what he is right now, then I would try and go get him. I think he's a great trade for a target. I'm still betting on the youth and the talent. Let's move on. I want to talk about my league winner in redraft this season that I put on my redraft show. He was 7 for 7 last week for 49 yards. So the yardage wasn't great, but the targets were there. He caught them all. He's tight end 10 on the year, but he missed a week, so his numbers aren't totally reflective. But here's the catch with Mr. Jake Ferguson. Brandon Cooks has an infection in his knee from surgery last week, so he's out for 1 to 2 weeks. Then they have the bye week, and then they get San Francisco's defense. I had Jake Ferguson on the redraft league winners show for the simple reason that I don't believe outside of CeeDee Lamb there is anybody in that offense capable of catching a pass except for Jake Ferguson. Would you trade for Jake Ferguson right now, especially with the Brandon Cooks news? And what's the price?
I've probably even came on this show and said I don't like Jake Ferguson, but he's proven me wrong. He's proven me wrong for sure, and I would be trading for him for sure. Yeah. I have to. And am I trading one of the higher end guys that's not producing right now for him? Just especially if I'm contending, maybe. Because where are we going with the tight end position, like we all have been saying?
Yep.
But yeah, in rookie drafts in Dynasty, you're never trying to draft a tight end unless you're in desperate need for him, right? A Brock Bowers is like the
But Bowers,
anomaly.
he's an outlier. I mean, so
Yeah.
Laporta
So
was
where
still
did
an
the
outlier.
second one go? It was
Yeah.
Jatavian Sanders, and he was in 3 or 4, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So I think the correct value is probably a second, right?
Yeah. Ben Sinnott, I actually think, was the second tight end off the
You're
board.
right, and even
It was
that
Sinnott
was still
before
3 and 4.
Sanders. Yeah.
Maybe late second, third, early third. So it was
Early
like
third. Yeah.
even there, it's like if I can get a second, if I'm trading the Jake Ferguson owner a second, I think they would snatch that up. They should. They should at least think about it, unless that's all they have. Because then I'd probably add a Tyler Conklin in there too, just to sweeten the pot or something like that.
Yep.
Because I don't think I'm giving up a wide receiver or a running back for a tight end. Not one. I don't even think. I'd rather have that value.
I think you're upgrading in this case. It's funny you said Conklin because that's what I was thinking of. I was thinking of, okay, who's a tight end that's kind of the de facto wide receiver 2 for their team that's not named Trey McBride?
Yeah.
Right. And that was the first name I came to, was like Conklin's usage has been good. Wilson's getting kind of stinky. It's why he's a trade target for us right now. We know what he's been this season, or in this case, what he hasn't. I know the Titans are a mess, but I would see if somebody wants to bite on Chig plus.
Yeah.
Chig plus would get you Ferguson. I think we talked about him earlier. Noah Fant plus probably gets you Ferguson. So those are at least 3 names. I wouldn't go with a rookie route like Eric All we talked about earlier, even though we like him. In Dynasty, we project him out. Attached to Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's been paid. Chase, should get paid. We'll see how that all plays out.
It just all makes sense. If you're the Eric All owner, you're happy.
Yeah, I mean that exactly. So I think that's, for me, I think some of those guys would be hard to give up. Who's my brain's blanked right now, but who's the backup? Not Noah Gray, but who's the backup rookie in Kansas City?
Jared
Wiley. I tried to trade for him the other day, and the guy straight up was like, "No, I'm not giving him up." And I was like, "Wow, you're that high on him?" And he's like, "Patrick Mahomes, the whole narrative, right? Mahomes offense and Kelsey sucks." And I'm like, "Okay." I mean, and look, the guy could be right. We'll see.
Going to Noah Gray.
Which is why I tried to trade for Wiley, because I was like, I just need a tight end, to kind of like developmental guy, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. So there's a couple names for you for Jake Ferguson. Let's talk about 2 guys really quickly as we kind of wrap the show here. We talked about a trade away target. So if I have DeAndre Swift as a trade away target, we must be talking about just kidding. Roschon Johnson. Come on down, brother. I don't have a ton of metrics on him because there aren't a lot of metrics, but here's the statistic, if you even want to call it that. He's getting ramped up, and he found the end zone last weekend. How do you project Roschon? Because I think I took a lot of shares of him last year in my second. I don't think I used a second on him, but I definitely used a couple thirds. I may have reached in the second somewhere as he got steamed up, but people were excited about him. It didn't work out, and then obviously they go and they sign. But they put money into Swift. So do you think someone's going to trade Roschon away? Can you acquire him? Everyone has the right price, but like, what's the price that gets someone to move off of Roschon right now?
I think if you're trying to trade for Roschon, you got to try to find the guys that are kind of in the same tier, and I'd try to give 2 of them if you have them.
Okay.
And the 2 that come to mind are Tank Bigsby and Ray Davis.
Yep.
Can I give those 2 guys up to get Roschon, knowing that Roschon's probably going to take over?
Yep.
You think Davis is getting a little bit more play. Bigsby is obviously getting a little bit more play.
Yep.
So you're still going to get the same value just out of 2 players out of 1. It'd be tough for me not to take that deal.
Let me ask you this name, because this came up in a conversation I was texting with a buddy the other day, and he and I were kind of going. I think he and I were on different sides of the fence here. All offseason, we said if Josh Jacobs come out and plays like shit, it is Marshawn Lloyd's backfield. And right now, Marshawn Lloyd is on IR, and Josh Jacobs looks pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Would you trade Marshawn Lloyd for Roschon Johnson?
Yeah,
I would too. Which is hard because I really like Marshawn Lloyd a lot. I believe in him a lot. I have a lot of shit. He's sitting there on my taxi squad, and that's fine. That's where he belongs right now, or in the IR spot if you've got that. But again, Jacobs looks good.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think
Marshawn Lloyd a lot, but if I can get the value now instead of waiting two years for it, I would probably take him. Yeah.
And Swift has his injury history. Like you said, maybe they simplified the game plan for Caleb because Caleb has looked atrocious. If you drafted Jayden Daniels, good for you. Let's do one more here really quickly. And this one is simply because of how we started the show. So it comes full circle here at the end. This one's kind of low-hanging fruit. Jacoby Myers. You cannot trade for Brock Bowers, right? We understand that. It's impossible. So if and when Davante Adams goes, you're not trading for Bowers. It's not going to happen. You don't want White. You don't want Madison. Would you? I have Jacoby Myers as a trade for on the real cheap and here's the caveat, as a contending team who needs a wide receiver. If you lost Puka, if you lost Kupp, if you've been out A.J. Brown for the whole season so far today, if you've got some of these guys in a dynasty format that just haven't panned out, would you trade for Jacoby Myers? And where do you assess his value? It's a low volume offense, etc. We know all the challenges the Raiders face.
It's really interesting, right? Because even with Davante, like week 1 and last year is a nice sample size, right? It's like, man, Jacoby, has Myers always been this kind of nice?
Yeah, that's why I wrote him up. He's interesting.
He's interesting. So it's like every week it seems like, yeah, I should try to go get him, but I still don't know the value for him, right? So it's like, am I hyping myself up too much for a mid-tier player, or do I try to go get him for like a?
Would you trade Curtis Samuel?
Okay.
And a third.
Yeah, I would.
For Myers. Do you think that gets done?
No, I don't think.
I don't either.
I think with Curtis Samuel and a third, I would have like a Luke McCaffrey type you need to get.
Yeah. Oh, interesting name. About Jalen McMillan.
Yep, that'd get the deal.
Someone on IR right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's that tier of wide receiver, rookie receiver as well.
Tez Walker.
Tez Walker. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
he's the one that's questionable. It just because of Baltimore. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they've been bad.
He's
not been around.
Yeah, because I think Keon Coleman's too high.
Yeah.
A.D. Mitchell, maybe he might be a little too high, but he's still there.
I think we still. I'm trying to take I do like A.D. Mitchell. I'm trying to take my bias out of it. So I do still think, regardless of my bias, I think we still need to give him a bit of time. The quarterback plays.
Agreed.
It's a fucking roller coaster there right now. Yeah.
That's why I'm more in the tier of like Luke McCaffrey. It's like he's playing well right now, but I think that's we're seeing his ceiling. That's
a good name too. So, and an interesting possibility for Adams to wind up there. We didn't talk about that team earlier, but it is interesting with, help Jayden, get him going. You've got 27-year-old Terry? Is 27 or 28 in that range.
Yeah,
but
he's around there. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, there's some guys that we think are trade for targets. Jacoby Myers on the cheap, Roschon, Jake Ferguson, and then Garrett Wilson is obviously the most attractive that we believe of pieces that you can go get low, especially if you believe he has the talent, and I still think he does. Some trade away guys, trade high on DeAndre Swift and Dallas Goedert, capitalize on on Goddard's early good start to the season, on Swift's last good week, and Christian Kirk still being kind of involved there in the offense with the last 2 or 3 weeks. I think those are trade away candidates for us. Before we wrap up, we got a couple extra questions, and then, of course, we're going to drop some links. If you are listening, make sure you are liked and subscribed to our channels. Cody, real quick, before we hit the last questions, make sure you tell the people one more time where they can find you and drop your link so they can hit that subscribe button for you, bud.
You can find me at the Dynasty Pros Football YouTube page or dynastyprosfootball.com for my written content. And I have a show over there called Fourth and Dynasty Podcast. Phil has been on it. It's a nice little fun little dynasty show that we do.
So. I love it. It's awesome. Appreciate you being here, brother. Let's do last 2 questions here from Team Money. Looks like this might be a 2-parter. 10-man PPR. First of all, thanks so much for giving us the context. We love that. 10-man PPR. Burrow, Jacobs, Connor, CD, Chase, Kincaid, DK, JMO, Ford, Chase Brown. This is his roster. Downs, Wicks, Worthy, Brooks, and IR 2-2. So he says the 1 and 3 guys sent me Gibbs and Devonta Smith for DK and Connor. Are you all taking that? 100%.
100%.
For those that are listening, Cody's shaking his head. 100%.
Sorry for the audio listeners. Yeah, you take that deal and you don't look back.
No, you
Because-
run.
Yeah, because Davante Smith, just based off volume alone, is a better play than DK. And Connor is old and you're getting a young Gibbs. Like, you're upgrading in both spots, and like, I don't know why he would send that to you.
I agree. Yeah, I would agree, T Money, and I appreciate you giving us your roster here because now we know you have DK and Mr.
Yes.
James Conner. So, yeah, to me, this is a smash and grab job. I'm out. I'm not looking back, and I would press the accept button as fast as humanly possible and hope that your league doesn't ask. I don't think there should be a veto, which, by the way, sets a really bad precedent. Please don't veto a trade unless you trade Patrick Mahomes for, Tyler Snoop Huntley. Then you can veto that.
Yeah, but
don't veto trades. It's not a good look, guys and girls, folks, all the folks.
Yeah. Most of the time, they've been talking about this for a few days and stuff, so it's like they've both agreed to it, so it should be fine.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, this is a bit of a head scratcher for me. I would not give up the Gibbs Devonta side, but if you get it done, maybe someone has a specific conviction, or maybe it's a Seahawks fan, but then we're good to go. So, well, as always, appreciate you being here, brother. Always good to see you, man. It was an awesome time tonight. Again, I will be back tomorrow with my show at 4:00 Pacific time, going through some DraftKings DFS lineups that I like for cash, going through my higher or lower picks that I like on Underdog, and then finishing the show with my weekly picks, both from straight up perspective and my confidence points. And that show's usually about 30 to 45 minutes. So we will get you right for Thursday night football. Who do we have this week? Falcons and who? Who do the Falcons play? I have to look. Falcons and somebody.
Isn't a divisional game, maybe?
I thought so, yeah. Falcons and the Buccaneers. Maybe a good game, actually, because those last two Thursdays have been stinky.
Yeah, I'd like that.
I only like the fact that Neighbors, minus the concussion, absolutely fucking crushed it. That was beautiful, but the rest of the game was like, God. So
I did like seeing 12 targets for Wandell.
I liked that. I liked my CD anytime touchdown. We're going to review my picks from last week. I made some money last week. So, all right, folks, y'all know what to do. Hit that like and subscribe button for us if you like the content. You can also listen along on Spotify and Patreon. Find me over there at The Extra Point. See you all tomorrow. We out.
Wanted to write fantasy is the play. Marking often, but I tune in every Friday. Strategies provided, I will lock in every way. So go